This is a short demo of the GPS Visualizer website. We're going to use it to visualize some GPX data that we've collected with our phones using a mobile GPS app. My examples are from the Gaia GPS app, and I'm using an iPhone. There's many sources of GPX data, and you can even Google your favorite trail or hike plus GPX, or maybe your favorite area plus GPX, and you very well may find GPX data available for those areas. So many of these mobile apps that we use on our phones to collect GPS data have some decent visualization, things like maps and elevation profiles that you can see the data right on your phone. But as GIS professionals, we often want to get the data out of our phones and visualize it in other software, and commonly we want to convert the GPX files or KML data to Esri formats to put in our GIS databases like geodatabases, or just convert them even to a shapefile data formats that are more readily read and used in ArcGIS software, so we can make them part of our GIS databases and workflows and maps that we're already working on. So the GPS Visualizer tool is just a really great tool for visualizing GPS data, and it does a lot of different things, and I wanted to show some of the highlights of it that I really like. So what you see here is the main page, and from the main page you can see here you can upload a GPS file and you can view it in Leaflet, which is a web-based map. You can view it in Google Maps, also a web-based map. Google Earth, which is a standalone application. You could even have the GPS file output to just a static image. If you wanted to put a static image on a website, it'll put it on a map and make a JPEG or a PNG of it. You can even have it output to a scalable vector graphic. Whereas JPEGs and PNGs are raster-based files, the SVG is a vector-based graphics file. Now, none of these files are really GIS files in that they don't store GIS coordinates with them once they get to these formats, but they are raster and vector formats. The SVG is a common format that graphic designers use for doing things like developing logos. It's akin to an Adobe Illustrator file, and that there are both vector-based files. And the key about the SVG drawing is it can be edited outside of the GPS Visualizer software, and I'll show you some things I've done with that. You can even create elevation profiles, and there are ways in the software to enter in multiple GPX files and combine them even. So you can do a lot of different neat stuff, and let's just look at using a leaflet map at a really basic example. And so I'm going to go choose from my class demo folder, and I've got a lot of stuff in here from doing a lot of tests of this stuff. And so I'm going to go click this tracks file, or maybe this tracks from yesterday, and we'll see what this one looks like. So this is a track file exported directly out of Gaia GPS, and you can click map it, and quickly and easily you can see the file. So this is up riding up Town Mountain in downtown Asheville on a bike ride yesterday evening. So I'm going to click the back button, and Google Maps now, just so you know, so I can change it to Google Maps and I still have that file in there. Google Maps has changed how their API works, and it requires an API key. So if you try to use Google Maps in here, it's going to ask you for this API key. You can just close it, and it gives an error, but it actually still works. So you can see this is a interactive web-based map that you can zoom in and out on. You can change the base map. That one doesn't work very well. OpenCMap's not going to work there. How about OSM Topo? don't know if that's going to work here. So you can change your base maps and do different things here with this. So there we go. So some more examples. So it's pretty nice that you can do this web-based mapping with your own data really easily outside of the Esri world. You can even draw an elevation profile right there on it, and it shows where along it. So it's just a pretty neat tool to quickly and easily visualize GPS data. You could even draw an elevation profile in here, and I'll draw it and let you see it. And so there's an elevation profile. Now, when you're working from this first page of the GPS visualizer, you don't have a lot of options that you can change in here. But if you go look at these options over here, you can do much more with them. So one of the things I wanted to show you was some of the things you can do with elevation profiles. I've done a good bit of work with elevation profiles on some of the maps I've done, and so I wanted to point out some of the really neat stuff you can do with elevation profiles here. So when you create an elevation profile here, you can output to several formats. PNG is a higher resolution file than JPEG. It doesn't have as much built-in compression. It's JPEGs are a lossy type file format that lose information. You could do a JPEG. These are both raster based that can't be edited after really, but you could do it as an SVG file. And the thing about elevation profiles is, depending on how wide you do an elevation profile, you can make a particular segment of a trail, a ride or a run or whatever you're looking at an elevation profile of, you can make it look really steep based on it being not a very wide area that you're cramming all the data into. So this is some of the good options you have, as you can tweak the width and the height of the elevation profile. You can also control the X and the Y axes, so you can keep them kind of in line with your with the data that you're using. If your GPS data does not have Z values in it, you can impose the Z values on a track, on a line, based on where it overlays on a DEM. We'll just pick the best source available there. And you can tell it to colorize by elevation, get the cumulative distance, so track dividers, even show waypoints along the line, which is really neat, and we'll see that next. You can show statistics, elevation gain, all this stuff. But let's just choose that same file and see what it looks like in here. So I'm just going to choose that GPX file, and with some of these settings you can see that you get this. And if you remember looking at the profile on Google Maps on the first page, it was not quite that steep. That's a reasonably steep ride, but not super steep. So one of the neat things when you're working in this view of the elevation profile is that it keeps that window open, so I can go in here and I can tweak some of this and just draw it again, and I'll just get it on another tab. So if I go 800 by 200 and draw the profile again, make it a little wider and not as wide, not as high, you'll see how it starts to affect how it looks. Okay, now it's the same elevation gain, it's just spreading it over a wider distance. Same gain and the same distance there. So that's pretty neat that you can do that. The elevation, coloring it by elevation is pretty neat, I guess. I usually end up telling it not to color by elevation and do none. You could color it by all kinds of stuff there, you see. So let's look at it now, just changing that one little setting. So now it looks like that, same elevation profile, it's just not colorized. And notice that I've got it up there as a scalable vector graphic, so I can save this by downloading it here, right-clicking on the download, and I can save the link as an SVG file. Now, if I download this as an SVG file, I can completely edit and customize it in a program like Adobe Illustrator, or there's a free version of something called Inkscape. They're both vector-based graphic design tools. Adobe Illustrator is vector-based, Adobe Photoshop is vector-based. So there's lots of software out there that work with vector and raster data that are not tied to the earth geographically with coordinates in the data files. So those are all pretty neat examples. From there, I thought I'd show you how you can add multiple files in here. And so I'm gonna get rid of this file right there. I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna close it, and I'm gonna grab a couple of files from an elevation profile I made for a DuPont map that I have, and it's of a loop that's called the Goyen loop of Goyen Farms. So I'm going to add that. That's the track, it's the line, it's a loop, it's a ride or a hike. And along that hike, there are some points of interest that I wanted to point out. So I'm going to put the points of interest in there too. And I'm going to make sure that I'm including the waypoints with vertical labels. Okay, so along that elevation profile, these waypoints are going to be there, and I can put this in here as well, and it's going to give me an error, not an error. It's going to give a suggestion here that you put an elevation threshold in. And now I'll draw this profile, and you'll see how this looks. Again, it's going to come down as a vector file. Takes it a little bit longer, but it looks like that. So along this loop that we call the Goyen loop, you start at Goyen Farms and you ride up, and then you hit the Rocky Ridge Trail, and this is the downhill on Rocky Ridge. And they've got a little uphill Hickory Mountain, then there's the Ridgeline Trail junction down to Hooker Creek, Grassy Cove. So you come through and see this. Now you can again download this, and what I wanted to show you is what a finished product of something looks like when you start with something like this. If I have it, I believe I don't, so I'll have to go open this up. So give me just a second here, and I'll show you what that elevation profile looked like, and it'll show you the power, hopefully, of being able to download this file as a vector-based file, and then use it for the basis in a graphic design program to make some pretty nice graphics. So I think it is that one maybe. We'll see here as it cranks up. All right, and so if you can remember what this profile looks like, and again I can download it right there as a vector-based file, and by bringing it down like that and starting to edit it, that is how it started, or that was a different one actually. So let's try, oh, this is the one, sorry, the Goyen loop. So this is what that profile ended up looking like after doing some significant editing to it. You'll see I stretched it out a little bit more than this one is even. This one I stretched out to what, 800 there. And if you look at the name of this one, Goyen Farm 200 by 100, 2300, that doesn't, oh no, this one. I usually name these in a way that I can look back at it and tell what kind of dimensions I used. And 500 by 100, yeah, I bet that is 500 by 100. The 100 height makes it look stretched out farther. but then I used the elevation or the waypoints along the way, and really did a lot more work to it, obviously. So a couple other things you can do. Let's see if these show. Yeah, waterfalls, that kind of stuff. Two different waterfalls, a cemetery, crossing over Hooker Creek there. So another example, just to see the kind of things this website gives you a jumping off point for working with. I also did this map here of a race, an enduro race done around Black Mountain. An enduro race is a mountain bike race that you're timed on the downhills and not on the times in between. And so the red sections here are the downhills. Okay, red sections of the downhills, down Rattlesnake and Ridgecrest, down Katsuma here, down the bottom part of Jarrett Creek, and a little bit of Star Gap there. So those are the downhills, and I have these GPX files of the timed sections of the downhills. And putting those in here, let me close these, it did something pretty interesting. And I need to add one, whoops, sorry, I need to add another additional box, and I'm going to put in here timed 1 GPX 1, timed 2 day 1, timed 3 day 1, and timed 4 day 1, and draw the profiles. And these are not continuous sections, and it does a pretty neat thing here, and it shows the 4 sections, the 4 downhills, by kind of steepness, length, and comparison to where each one starts in elevation to where each one ends. So the distance between the first downhill that you go down Rattlesnake Trail, and then you ride over to the top of Katsuma, and this is the top of Katsuma, but it tells you that it's not a big climb to get over to Katsuma, but this is a bigger climb to get over to the next one. So I thought this was a pretty interesting visualization using different GPX files that are not contiguous in nature. So again, these are all just kind of examples. Let's run back over here to the map real quick. I'm gonna just give you a quick look at one more example. I'm gonna go choose a file, and I'm gonna put in this Goyen loop just so you can see it. This is a loop in DuPont. And it gives you a pretty nice visualization of it. And so it's a nice tool to quickly visualize data. It allows you to do some additional things, some types of data conversion work, or at least it lets you combine GPX files for sure. And if you go to one of these additional ones like this leaflet one, you can have a lot more control over the base map and all this stuff. So I could add the Goyen loop along with the Goyen points of interest, and we could see a little bit more of what's going on here. And of course you can change a bunch of different stuff in here: dimensions, width, height, all kinds of different stuff. It's just a really nice way to again visualize GPS data. I like to share it with students because I've gotten so much good use out of it. The developer of this site is very responsive as well. If you have problems, I've emailed him several times, and I can't remember a time that he didn't get back to me within a couple of hours. So this demonstration is related to our assignment that we've been working on, and that is this assignment. And for for this GPS visualizer portion of the assignment, I'm going to put the video right in here, and I'd like for you just to experiment with the site some. You're going to upload your GPX files to me for this assignment, as well as my next video on converting to other data formats using the My Geodata converter. So hope you found this video useful.